back. The conservative movement is having a moment holding all levers of government, but getting suburban moms on board might be a different story. Adrienne Gray wrote about this for her website, Pop Culture on the Hill, in this piece. And you mentioned trad wife messaging. We're going to talk about that and more. She's up late with me tonight here on the Final Five. One day after joining us on Like It or Not. Good to see you. Different forum to have you here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I want to get this out of the way first because trad wife, I didn't know what that movement was. And explain to people who don't know what trad wives are.
Exactly. Well, trad wives have been around for generations. This isn't anything new, and it's actually something that affects both parties. It's not necessarily a right versus left. But there's this new age and new rise of young conservative voices online that have significant followings that are creating content that is trad wife, and they have all the makeup on, the jewelry, the outfits, and they're cooking and baking and cleaning, and it's a whole niche. It's been going.
Okay, so you are a mom. Two young boys?
Yes.
And which is because we're learning a lot about each other when you join us at 7 o'clock here on Fox 5. But being a mom these days, it has to be so much different than when your mother was raising you, when my mom was raising me.
Absolutely. And this is a very dynamic conversation. It has a lot of dimensions, and it's very nuanced. So I appreciate you having me on. But there's all different stories. Some of our grandmothers, they were able to stay at home and their husbands worked. My mom was a working mom. She didn't have the option to stay at home, but she felt she was very proud to be able to contribute to our lifestyle, putting us in Catholic school and things like that. So the value is there for working moms and stay-at-home moms.
I was very blessed to have my mom who did not work. My dad worked 2 jobs. I didn't see him a whole lot growing up. My mom was at home. Nowadays, it almost seems as though those women who choose to enter the workforce and maybe have a daycare or a babysitter come over, they're almost labeled that they might be selfish or they might be putting their interest ahead of their kids. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel a little upset. I want to just share a statistic with you that 74% of Americans, working moms, that's the percentage right now in reality. That, I think, was a study in 2024. That equates to 24 million American moms. And that's a statistic that I don't want to exclude from, the right wing because they're not worthy. So it's a very important conversation, but I think there's extremes on both sides. I think, labeling the feminist versus the trad wife is very troubling for our culture.
You wrote about this for your website, Pop Culture on the Hill, and one person that you've talked about quite a bit is Ivanka Trump. And during her father's first term, he wanted her to work in a capacity to find ways to make life a little bit easier for working moms. And I'm curious, why do you see her as a role model in that regard? So
I feel like Ivanka evokes, a woman that I can not only relate to, but a lot of my friends can relate to. And what I do when I speak to women, suburban women on the right, is that I speak from experience. I have a favorite quote from Aristotle that is, it's unbecoming for young men to utter maxims, and men meaning man, meaning people. And I think there's a deeper message there. For suburban women, the younger conservative voices online, they don't speak their language. So I think that's a very important point. I think that's what Ivanka Trump did.
And when you look at some of those, and certainly not all, but when you look at some of the younger conservative men, those male voices out there, do you think that they conflate the idea of motherhood and supporting their kids with being overly ambitious and maybe saying, these are our roles now?
I think there's a bit of the gender roles going on. And again, in the conservative movement and the Republican Party, you're always going to have those gender roles that they lean back on. But the reality is, everyday Americans, that's who I want to speak to. Not the base that's always going to vote conservative, but the everyday American, they're wondering, can they pay rent or their medication? And I won't judge a mom who decides to choose life but may need to work in addition to her husband in order to support that life.
There was a push just a couple months ago about Anna Paulina Luna, the Republican congressman from Miami, teaming up with a Democratic congresswoman from Colorado, saying, "Hey, we want to we want to help our families, we want to support our families. We need to make it easier to represent our constituencies on the Hill, whether it came down to not ranked choice voting, proxy voting. I mean, and the attitude is, hey, if you want to do the job, you have to be here. But I think that we're seeing more voices on both sides saying, hey, we need to support our families, but we also need to make this a fair playing field?
Absolutely. I think, again, bringing American families to the forefront is how we win, whether it's on the right or the left. Prioritizing that is what everyday Americans care about, not this trad wife content creation that is sort of fantasy and sometimes like a fetishing kind of content.
Happy Mother's Day. Good to see you
Thank
again.
you.
We'll
Thank
see
you for
again
having
soon.
me.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. We're back after this on the Final Five.